Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are unpacking a seriously gripping, character-driven story from ancient historical texts. This is a story that is fundamentally about power, corruption, and the shifting of entire dynasties. We're going to be looking at the dramatic rise of a young prophet named Samuel and the absolutely catastrophic fall of Eli, a high priest who, on paper, seemingly had it all. If you love deep dives into history that are highly structured and organized, well, you are in the exact right place.
So think about this for a second. What happens when an untouchable dynasty just loses its moral compass? We're actually going to skip our usual agenda today and jump straight into the drama, because this ancient text explores some incredibly timeless themes of leadership and accountability. I mean, how does an established 40-year reign completely collapse while a seemingly insignificant kid from the hill country rises up to lead an entire nation? The answers are honestly super relevant to how we view integrity today.
Section 1. A Mother's Desperate Vow.
Every great epic has to start somewhere, right? And our dual narrative begins not in some fancy king's palace, but with a really humble, miraculous moment at the temple in Shiloh. The story kicks off with a man named Elkanah and his two wives. Now, one wife, Peninnah, has children, but the other, Hannah, doesn't. And the text tells us Hannah is provoked, year after year, until she's just weeping bitterly and utterly refusing to eat. It is out of this really deep, profound bitterness of soul that she makes a wild vow. She promises that if she is given a son, she will give him back to the Lord for his entire life, and no razor will ever touch his head. That's a promise with a remarkably steep personal cost. But it's the exact catalyst that brings Samuel into the world.
Now, what is truly fascinating about this moment is the intense, dramatic irony. While Hannah is pouring out her soul, silently moving her lips in this desperate prayer, Eli, the high priest, is just sitting nearby. He's watching her, and he completely misjudges the whole situation. He actually rebukes her. He tells her to put away her wine. Think about that. Here we have the absolute top religious leader of the nation, and he is so spiritually dim that he mistakes deep, authentic devotion for public intoxication. As we'll see, this brilliant little detail directly foreshadows Eli's coming failures as a leader.
Let's move on to Section 2, Corruption in the Temple.
We're going to shift our focus now to the dark reality of the established leadership in Shiloh, mainly to contrast it with Samuel's innocent beginnings. The text introduces a really crucial phrase here that you need to know: sons of Belial. This ancient term essentially translates to complete worthlessness or extreme wickedness, and the text explicitly uses this exact label to describe Eli's two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, who are serving as priests right alongside him. The source material pulls absolutely no punches here. It states flat out that these two leaders knew not the Lord.
The text brilliantly sets up the core conflict of our story like a split screen. On one side, you have young Samuel. After he's weaned, Hannah brings him to the temple just like she promised. He's ministering before the Lord as a child, wearing this simple little linen ephod, and his mother lovingly brings him a new coat year by year. It's very sweet. But then, on the other side, we have Hophni and Phinehas. When people come to offer sacrifices, these corrupt priests send a servant with a giant three-pronged flesh hook to literally plunge into the boiling pots, just violently stealing whatever meat comes up. They even demand raw meat by force before the ceremonial fat is burned. The gluttonous entitlement of this fading establishment stands in sharp, terrifying contrast to the pure dedication of the rising prophet.
Which brings us to Section 3, A Voice in the Night.
We've reached the critical turning point in the source material, where the paths of our two main subjects physically and spiritually collide. Notice the specific sensory detail the text uses right here. His eyes began to wax dim, that he could not see. Now sure, this is a literal description of the aging Eli, but it so perfectly mirrors his tragic inability to see or curb the evil going on inside his own family. The text notes that Eli actually hears about all the terrible things his sons are doing, even scandalous acts, right at the door of the tabernacle. But his rebukes are incredibly weak. He is completely, utterly blind to the urgency of the corruption rotting his own house.
Then the word of the Lord comes to young Samuel in the dead of night. After Samuel mistakenly runs to Eli 3 times, he totally thinks the old priest is calling him. He finally receives this devastating revelation. Listen to this. I will judge his house forever for the iniquity which he knoweth, because his sons made themselves vile, and he restrained them not. So the absolute crucial point here is that Eli's failure wasn't ignorance. It was a total lack of action. The very next morning, a terrified young Samuel is forced to deliver this exact message to his mentor. This officially marks the end of Eli's dynasty. Following this, the text notes that Samuel grew and was very quickly established as a prophet of the Lord throughout all Israel.
All right, Section 4, Disaster and Eli's Fall.
The tension is absolutely peaking right now. We're accelerating straight into the climax of the story, which is triggered by a massive, catastrophic war with Israel's greatest enemy at the time, the Philistines. Israel is losing badly, so they make this foolish decision to bring the sacred Ark of the Covenant out into the battlefield, basically treating it like some magic talisman. Hophni and Phinehas go with it. And guys, this triggers a rapid, horrific domino effect of disasters all in a single day. First, Israel is slaughtered. They lose 20,000 footmen. Second, the Ark of God is captured by the Philistines. Third, the prophecy comes true. Hophni and Phinehas are both killed. Finally, a messenger sprints all the way back to Shiloh. When 98-year-old Eli, who's sitting by the wayside with his unseeing eyes, hears that the Ark is captured, he falls backward off his seat, breaks his neck, and dies. 40 years of leadership completely dismantled in a single afternoon.
But the horror of this day actually doesn't stop with Eli. Phinehas' wife, upon hearing the news that her husband is dead, her father-in-law is dead, and the ark is taken, well, she goes into premature labor. And as she's dying in childbirth, she names her newborn son Ichabod. That literally translates to, "The glory is departed from Israel." Just take a moment to reflect on the haunting permanency of a name like that. It brilliantly shows how the consequences of failed leadership and unchecked corruption don't just vanish into thin air, they echo violently right into the next generation.
And finally, Section 5, the cursed ark returns.
Now we're going to follow the captured ark right into Philistine territory, where the historical text takes a really bizarre, visceral, and highly memorable turn. So the Philistines think they've won this massive definitive victory, right? So they place the captured ark in the temple of their god Dagon over in Ashdod, but it instantly becomes a curse to them. First, the statue of Dagon mysteriously falls flat on its face. They put it back up, but the next morning it falls again, and this time its head and hands are cleanly cut off on the threshold. Then, a deadly destruction strikes the cities wherever they try to move the ark, from Ashdod to Gath to Ekron. The text describes the people being smitten with severe plagues of emerods, basically that translates to horrible, agonizing tumors. It illustrates incredibly clearly that the ark is this dangerous, holy entity that actively curses anyone who possesses it unjustly.
So, after 7 agonizing months of this, the Philistines have had enough. They consult their priests and diviners, who come up with, honestly, one of the most specific and strange return rituals ever recorded in ancient history. Here's what they do. They build a brand new cart, they hitch it to 2 milk cows that have never even worn a yoke, and they deliberately take their calves away and shut them up at home. Then, as a trespass offering, they load the cart with 5 golden tumors and 5 golden mice, representing the plagues that hit their 5 lords. Finally, they just let the cows walk off unattended. They want to see if the cows will unnaturally head straight into Israelite territory to the city of Beth Shemesh. And guess what? Against all natural animal instincts, the cows take the straight road, lowing the whole way, successfully returning the ark and absolutely proving the divine nature of the plague.
Wow, so we've covered the miraculous rise of Samuel out of his mother's desperate prayer, and we've seen the tragic, total collapse of Eli's dynasty, all due to his refusal to hold his own sons accountable. So I want to leave you with this question to chew on. What does it take for modern glories to depart when leaders fail to hold their own houses accountable? The ancient fall of Eli's house isn't just dusty old history, it is a stark, flashing warning sign about the absolute necessity of integrity, vision, and action in leadership today. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking great questions and keep learning.